everyone. Welcome back into another edition of the Fan Committee Football Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Joe Tuman. I'm once again joined by my co-host, Michael Herrera. Mike, today is finally the day we're finally going to talk about the NFC, but we're going to talk about the entire NFL today because we're doing our playoff standings predictions for the upcoming season, kind of predicting where we think all these divisions are going to wind up going into the season, which of course starts this Sunday. Are you getting excited? Because I'm getting excited right about now.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm super excited for the Sunday games, and I'm really excited to have the NFL come back. I mean, it's my favorite sport. I'm sure it's your favorite sport as well, so we're really pumped. Really hyped to see how the Dolphin season is going to start off.
Yeah, Dolphins playing the Pats this week. They beat them week 1 last year, I believe, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm excited to see if they can get a big win over them again. I had the Packers playing the Vikings, so we got some divisional rivals for our teams in this first week. But today we're not just talking about week 1. We're talking about the entire season. We've already covered a lot of the AFC, really all of it, honestly. But we wanted to talk about who we think is going to make the playoffs in the AFC as well as the NFC on today's pod. And we can start with the AFC. Looking at the divisions, we did already talk about them in a lot of our preview episodes, but just to reiterate. So I think AFC East, we're both, even though you're a Dolphins fan, I think we're both in agreement. The Bills probably got that on lock, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I do think the Bills are definitely the best team in this division, as much as it pains me to say as a Dolphins fan. But I do think the Bills have the stranglehold on this division. They're going to have it for a few years, especially considering, Josh Allen's about to enter his prime as a football player, which is insane. Just like he's not already in it, he's going to enter it. So it's going to be crazy to see how he really just like continues to improve. But I do think the Bills are going to win, and I think sadly we're going to see the Jets at the bottom again. But I just think that their roster is too young this year. But I think next year we're going to see a big improvement from them, I think.
I'm in agreement. I also think the Jets have dealt with already some preseason injuries that just weren't that good. You know, Brees Hall and Garrett Wilson sounds like they're having a little more growing pains in camp than expected, so they might take a year to get adjusted. But overall, I think the Jets are definitely in last. I think the Pats are in second to last. I think it goes Bills at a certain are level 1, Dolphins level 2, Pats level 3, and Jets level 4. I think they're all very kind of separate from each other. I think they're all in a very distinct order.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially because I feel like me personally, it kind of like for the most part, I don't want to say like Tua is the second best quarterback in this division, but I do think that like Zach Wilson's the worst and Josh Allen's the best. I think Mac Jones is a little overrated. I don't think he's anything special. So honestly, I think he's around the same level as Tua. Not saying Tua's better, but I think so. But I do agree. They're all kind of like, there's definitely like degrees of separation between these teams. There's definitely some divisions where it's a lot closer, but I agree with what you're saying. I do think the Bills definitely have that top spot like locked in, and it's definitely like three separate other tiers below that. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. And one of those divisions that is a lot closer, that's the AFC North. And, I got the Bengals win the division again. I believe you agreed with me when we did our preview, but we also I think the Ravens are going to have a big season as well.
I do think Bengals are definitely the most complete team on this in this division for sure. They're definitely the most. They're good all around. It's basically the same team from last year, but just better really because the offensive line has improved since then. They brought in some good young guys into the secondary, like Dax Hill, who in the preseason games he was pretty good. But I do think the Ravens and the Steelers definitely. They're going to have a little fight in them, but I do think the Bengals overall are the best team. And the Browns, the less said about the Browns is better.
Yeah, we kind of killed the Browns when we talked about them before, but yeah, we're definitely still in agreement here. Bengals probably going to win that division. So Bengals and Bills, they won the divisions last year. We still think they are going to this year. Another thing we agree, though, is that the winner of the AFC South is going to change. Last year was the Titans. They were the 1 seed. We both killed the Titans when we talked about them. We think the Colts, they got the combination of getting better as a team, plus their really easy schedule. We think that they're going to win this division as well. How deep do you think the Colts can go in the playoffs? Do you expect them to have maybe a playoff win in them this season?
For sure. I think that it definitely helps that they brought in a playoff experienced quarterback. Matt Ryan. Everyone likes to make fun of him for the whole Falcons 28-3, but that's ancient history at this point. It is what it is. Things happen. But Matt Ryan's an excellent quarterback. I think he's definitely the best quarterback in this division as of now. And I do think the Colts are very solidly similar to the Bengals. They're a very well-rounded team in this division. I think they can have a win or two, but I don't know if they make it to the Super Bowl just yet. That remains to be seen, especially with like improvements from the secondary and the wide receiver core because there's a lot of young guys in there. And I do think the Titans are going to hold that second spot, possibly a wild card, because the Titans, we ripped into them in their episode as well, as you were saying,
Mhm.
but they always seem to get it done with less than stellar rosters. So I think they're going to fight for a wild card.
Interesting. We definitely killed them. I don't have the Titans making the playoffs, but I would get like you're saying, they might fight back. You never know. Maybe they're going to wind up getting a wild card, surprise everyone. But I just don't see it. But we'll have to see what happens. Part of the reason I don't see it is because this last division, the AFC West, is so loaded. I think they could have even 3 playoff teams. Did you agree with me that the Chiefs are probably the favorite for this division? I'm picking the Chiefs. I'm keeping with Mahomes. I think they're going to win the division.
Yeah, no, for sure. I do think the Chiefs are they're the most experienced team here. There's a lot of these other teams, they're very good teams as well. Like they're very comparable in terms of the Chiefs, in terms of talent. But the Chiefs, I think, are just a little above them and they're a lot more experienced, especially with like an MVP quarterback like Patrick Mahomes at the helm.
Mhm.
I think people really like to disparage him because, Tyreek Hill's gone and all that. But I think people are forgetting that Patrick Mahomes is like, he's the premier NFL quarterback. Like he's the face of the league right now because he's like
Yep.
the best of the best. And I think people kind of forget about that really easily. But
Mhm.
I totally agree with you. We could easily see 3 playoff teams here in this division.
Yeah, another reason I like the Chiefs to win this division more than the reasons I said when we already talked about them. Andy Reid's a Hall of Fame coach who's been going on for a long time. He's going up against Josh McDaniels, who's coaching as a head coach for the first time in a decade. Nathaniel Hackett, rookie head coach. Brandon Staley, second-year head coach, who had some struggles in his first year. I think Andy Reid also is going to be able to have a leg up on his competition here.
I definitely agree. I think that's kind of like the part of the whole experience thing. You got like a generational talent at quarterback and you've got a Hall of Fame coach. It's very easy for people to count them out, but I don't see why people are doing that. This is easily still the best team. Like just because they lost Tyreek Hill, I think it's kind of weird that people are trying to write them off so soon.
I'm in agreement. So we both agree that the Chiefs, Colts, Bengals, and Bills are the division winners. I'm interested to see what you have to say about both. Who do you think the number 1 seed out of those 4 teams will be, and also who your 3 wild card teams are? So starting with the 1 seed, I've got the Bills. I've got them going 14-3. I know that's a lot of wins, but I got them the most wins in the NFL this year. I think they're the 1 seed. Would you agree with that, or do you see another team maybe taking that 1 seed?
I kind of agree. My problem is I'm still kind of trying to pick between the Chiefs and the Bills. To me personally, I think they're easily 2 of the best teams in the league as a whole. But I'm not entirely sure which one of them is going to be the leader. But I do think the Buffalo Bills, I agree with you, they have the edge a little bit. So I'm going to agree with you on this one and say Buffalo Bills. But I think we could easily see the Chiefs also be the number 1 seed.
Yeah, I mean, with the Chiefs, you can't count them out like we were just saying. But I'm gonna go with the Bills. Something about like I just like what they've done this offseason. I like what they did last offseason. I like how they've elevated Gabe Davis into a bigger role. I like the improvements they made on defense. I don't know. I just think that they might be the best team in the NFL, and I'm gonna be riding with them. Even though a lot of people are saying that, I'm gonna go with the majority on this one. I see the vision for the Bills. I think they're gonna have a really, really good season. So I'll give you my wild card teams. You tell me if you agree or if you have a couple others. I think one team you're definitely gonna be upset I don't have in here. So I've got the Ravens as my 5 seed. I've got them going 11-6, not 11-5. We got the extra game now. I've got them as my 5 seed. I've got Russell Wilson and the Broncos cracking in there at 10-7. And it came down. I got two 10-win teams here. I've got the Dolphins and I've got the Raiders, the 2 teams that made major acquisitions of new star receivers in the offseason, Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams. I'm leaning Raiders here because I just trust the infrastructure of the offense for the Raiders. I like Derek Carr. The Dolphins have a better defense, but I'm supporting Tua with you. Like I'm a Tua supporter. I think he's going to improve this year. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't know if the Dolphins can beat some of these top teams in the AFC. They might be swept by the Bills. Maybe not, but they might be. They might have struggles against a team like the Ravens. I'm not quite sure. Well, I think the AFC West is just going to be trading wins throughout the year. And I think the Raiders might wind up getting some sort of tiebreaker that allows them to crack in. That you can argue against that. I'd be perfectly fine with it because, like I said, I have them both going 10-7. But someone had to miss out. I'm kind of leaning Dolphins here. What's your response as a Dolphins fan?
I want to be mad. I don't have the Dolphins in there, but I totally understand where you're coming from. I do think the AFC, as a whole, is like the most loaded division or a conference. Pardon. I think it has just like the best quantity of like good teams in it, and I totally understand where you're coming from. Like, I want to support the Dolphins, and I do think we have a good shot at the wild card, but I can't say for certain we make it in because obviously we have to count on Tua to improve, and obviously Mike McDaniel. He's never been head coach before, but I have faith in McDaniel. I've heard a lot of good things out of him. Dolphins legends love him. Current analysts and reporters love him too. I don't see why he can't be a good head coach, but I totally understand where you're coming from. It makes sense to me. Me personally, my wild card teams, I'm looking at. Totally agree with you on the Ravens on this one. Broncos as well. I definitely agree with Russell Wilson. I think people are ready to write Russell Wilson off as he's an aging vet because of his last season. But I think people are forgetting that like people can have down seasons. He was also injured for a bit of it. So I think it's kind of unfair that people are being that way. And me personally, I don't think the toss-up is actually the Raiders. I think it's actually going to be the Titans, weirdly enough. And I know that we ripped into the Titans like this is a bad team, but Mike Vrabel's an amazing coach. He won Coach of the Year last year for a reason. And so I don't see any reason why he can't still pull this team back to the playoffs, especially with a healthy Derrick Henry. If Derrick Henry's healthy the whole year and a lot of these young guys and like underdeveloped guys prove their worth, it's entirely possible we see them. And, I obviously also, as you noticed, didn't put the Dolphins in there because I think it's really going to come down to the wire with us. And I don't know which way it's leaning yet. So as of yet, I don't think it's fair to put them in a wild card contention just yet.
Interesting. So you have the Titans now. I thought you were in agreement with me that they were going to kind of be one of the more, not the worst teams in this conference, but definitely on the lower end based off our conversation before. So I find it interesting that you said that right now.
That's the thing. Like, I agree. Like, I'm not going to backtrack and like disagree with anything we said in the podcast episode earlier when we talked about the Titans. But the thing is, like, people say this every year about them, and yet they still manage to do it. And like, there's always that one team that you just don't think is going to make the playoffs that ends up making it. And I think Titans are personally the best bet for that just because of the fact that they always manage to pull it off. Like this team, because I don't think the Titans are a terrible team, but they're just not amazing either. But I think I don't know. I think Mike Vrabel's an amazing coach. And, Derrick Henry's also a generational running back. So there's a chance. And, you got to pick someone different because, I feel like there's always that one team you don't expect, So last year was the Bengals. No one expected the Bengals to make the playoffs last year. So why not the Titans? Maybe the Titans, they made the playoffs last year. But
yeah, I mean, the Bengals definitely surprised last year. So maybe the Titans will do that. I think some people will be listening and be surprised that neither of us said the Chargers. My case for the Chargers, I laid it out before, but I'll say it again. I just think that as good and as talented as they are, there's a lot of sliding doors. There's a lot of players with the injury history on this team that I just can't trust all 6, 7, 8 of them to stay healthy for an entire season. I think that the depth pieces behind them aren't going to just be able to fill in for a Khalil Mack, fill in for a Derwin James, fill in for a Keenan Allen or Mike Williams. And also Brandon Staley, I'm just not totally sold on as the head coach. So I think the Chargers, Justin Herbert, I think is going to be amazing. I think their offense is going to be really good. But I still think maybe they're a year or two away or maybe just a few more question marks to be answered before I can predict them to be a playoff team. And I know you said you thought they'd at least be better than the Raiders, but you also don't have them in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think the injuries are definitely going to be a struggle for them. It really comes down to if the injury bug goes their way. And, that's never something you want to count on. Like, you never want to count on good health. Like, you want your team to be well-built top to bottom, which is where I feel the Chargers team kind of fails. Like, they got a lot of top-end talent at the top of the depth chart, but at the bottom, it's kind of mid. So, yeah, I agree with you on that one. It's not the best bet for them.
Gotcha. And just to wrap up the AFC, I already said the Bills. I got them as my 1 seed. I also got them in the Super Bowl. I think they're the AFC winners this year. I love their defense. I love their offense. Josh Allen, I think, is a top 3 quarterback at the very least. I got them going to the playoffs. And it sounds like you're between the Bills and the Chiefs. Do you want to make a prediction here between those two teams, or you kind of want to chicken out, Mike?
No. As much as I am between the Chiefs and the Bills, I totally agree with you. I do think the Bills are a playoff team. A lot of people are talking about the Rams-Bills matchup, and they think this is a Super Bowl preview, and I totally agree with that sentiment. I do think we're going to see a Bills-Rams Super Bowl. I think they're the best teams in each of their conferences, or at the very least in terms of like top-end talent. It remains to be seen how the Packers shakes out with like a lot of these like new guys coming in. Not that I think the Packers are a bad team, but just like there's a lot of young guys who got to come in and prove their worth,
Yeah.
before.
Oh,
But they're still
definitely.
an amazing team. But no, I do think that the Bills are definitely one of the best teams, and I agree. As much as I want to, I don't want to chicken out, but but yeah, I think the Bills are going to go to the playoffs, the Super Bowl. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Bills in the Super Bowl. I think it's interesting that you said that this Rams Bills game on Thursday could be a Super Bowl preview. I think it's be quite poetic if it winds up being that way, that they start and end the season as Bills versus Rams. I think this is definitely one of the biggest season opener games in a long time. We've seen games before where it's like the Patriots as defending champions will host the Houston Texans. And it's just like, okay, we know the Pats are winning this. This could be a huge game.
Yeah.
Whoever wins this will automatically be 1-0. The other team has to start in a little deficit of 0-1 that you would hope they'd be able to climb out of, but at the same time, never a good thing to start your season off with a loss. So it'll be really interesting to see how that game goes on Thursday. I'm excited to see what happens. But we can move on to the NFC. So you mentioned the Rams as your Super Bowl pick. I'm going to hold off for a second on who I think is going to the NFC Super Bowl, but I do have the Rams as the division winners. I got them going 11-6. I think even though they lost Von Miller, even though Odell is currently a free agent dealing with that injury, they did bring in Allen Robinson to replace him. I think this Rams team is pretty much the same as last year. Jalen Ramsey's still there, Aaron Donald's still there, Matt Stafford. Although the thing with Matt Stafford right now is that elbow injury that they say he played through last season. Some people say, oh, if he had it last year, he'll be just as good this year. Other people think he's going to continue to suffer from the injury, and it could make him worse and worse as the months and years go by. What's your take on that whole situation? Obviously you have the Rams in the Super Bowl, so I assume you're not too concerned with it, but what's your opinion on the Rams as a whole right now?
I think the Rams are just one of the best built teams top to bottom. I'm looking at this depth chart and I love what they're doing. There's a lot of consistency here. Obviously, as you mentioned, they lost Von Miller.
To the Bills, no less.
Yeah, to the Bills. That's actually a really good point.
Yeah,
but I think like a lot of these players have been replaced suitably. Like Odell Beckham, he's not on the team yet, but there's a very good chance he comes back once he's recovered from his injury. I think Allen Robinson is very much a suitable replacement for him until we see what shakes out with that. They brought in Bobby Wagner. I know Bobby Wagner definitely lost a step. He's definitely lost a step in his age, but I think people are forgetting that Bobby Wagner's like a Hall of Fame linebacker, for a reason. Bobby Wagner is no slouch. And maybe he's not as fast as he used to be. Maybe he's not as physical, but, the guy plays intelligently. And I see no reason why he's not going to at least have a decent season with this team.
I'm in agreement. This defense, I think, is still going to be one of the best in the league. They have probably the best corner, the best D lineman. They got a Hall of Fame linebacker plus Ernest Jones, who broke out last season as a rookie. He could keep getting better. So I think their inside linebacker position will at least be pretty solid. I think they got 3 decent safeties as well. So I think overall this Rams team will win this division. But interestingly, I do have them, even though I have them winning the division, I have them having the same record as the second place team in this division, the San Francisco 49ers. I think the Niners, for all the people who might doubt Trey Lance, and I might be one of them, I still think if Jimmy Garoppolo, who I think is also a good player, if he was able to manage this offense to 2 NFC title games and a Super Bowl, I think Trey Lance, with the coaching of Shanahan, with the weapons he has, plus his added mobility to help escape any precarious situations, unlike Garoppolo, I think this offense only is going to become more dynamic and effective. And I hate that because the Niners always beat the Packers in the playoffs, and I would like to see them not make the playoffs one year. But I think the Niners are in a good spot. Fred Warner, Eric Armstead on the defense, the O-line, Trent Williams, and other guys like that are amazing. I just think Kittle, Samuel, etc. I think this team is primed for a good season. No matter who's playing running back, they're going to play well. We've seen that over and over. So I think that the only thing that's going to hold this Niners team back is the health, because we've seen this team be banged up over the years. So it'll be interesting to see if they can overcome that this season. But I really like the direction they're going in. Do you see the Niners as a playoff team this year? Or do you think Trey Lance's presence is more of a downgrade?
No, actually, I disagree with any people who seem to believe that starting Trey Lance is a bad idea. I think Trey Lance is definitely the future for this team. I think Trey Lance was a high draft pick for a reason. I agree with you. I love what the 49ers have done this offseason. There hasn't been too much upheaval of this team. It's still very much similar to last year, but this team, no matter who's playing at what position, they always seem to play well, especially with the running back position, like you're talking about.
I think for a while we're going to be hearing from Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch. They're running that team terrifically. I think the Niners are going to be heard from for a long time into the
Yeah,
future. I'm
I
interested
agree.
to see the rest of this division. I think we would agree the Seahawks are last place. They got a terrible quarterback situation. The defense is shaky. That's all we really need to say about them. I mean, I hope Geno's at least okay, but I don't think they're not going to be last place. Don't you agree?
No, yeah, I agree. A lot of people say that the Arizona Cardinals are also one of the worst teams in the league right now. They're very dysfunctional team, stuff like that. But at the very least, they have a competent quarterback. If he remains to be competent in the playoffs, that's another issue. That's even if
Yeah.
the Cardinals make the playoffs, which I don't have them to yet. But the Seahawks, I definitely agree. They have the worst quarterback situation. I'm a big Geno Smith fan because I don't think he got a fair shot starting out his career at the Jets, and he never was able really to recover. But it is what it is, and I do agree it's a terrible situation to be in. But yeah, they're definitely going to be last. My prediction would be Rams 1, Niners 2, Cardinals 3, Seahawks 4.
I'm in total agreement, and I also agree that the Cardinals aren't a playoff team. I think they'll be respectable. I think they'll fight, but I just don't like a lot of their depth. I don't love their defense, so it'll be interesting to see what happens um, with the Cardinals in the future. It'll be interesting to see if Cliff Kingsbury makes it past this season if they miss the playoffs, but that's another topic for maybe later in the season we can discuss. Moving on to the NFC South here. This is probably the division I had the hardest time predicting. I've been mulling it over for weeks, not to exaggerate it, but I kind of have been. I've been going back and forth, but I have finally settled on
Yeah.
division winner. Despite Chris Reynolds' arguments to me that the Saints are going to be better than Tampa, I don't see it. I think Tampa is going to win this division. I do have the Saints as a wild card team, but I think Tampa's going to take this division. Because here's what I looked at, Mike. I'm going to give you the case. You tell me if you agree. I looked at the depth chart. I see a linebacker core just as good as last year, one of the best in the league, if not the best. I see a secondary that's very respectable with Antoine Winfield, Carlton Davis leading the way. I see a D line that got better by signing Akeem Hicks, who they're going to hope bounces back from an injury-filled season last year with the Bears. And I see an offense that really my only concern would be Tom Brady because he's retired, then unretired, then took a week off, and I don't know where his head is at. So to me, the only thing that holds Tampa Bay back this year is if Tom Brady has a Peyton Manning, Troy Aikman, Dan Marino-esque end of career, fall off because he's ready to retire. But I'm not going to predict that for Tom Brady because at what point has Tom Brady ever showed us that he was going to let that happen? The other thing people are concerned with is the offensive line because Ryan Jensen, the starting center, went out for the season. But guess what? Robert Haynes is going to step in as the starter. He's probably going to be worse. But the rest of this line, Tristan Wirfs is a little banged up, but he's still going to play this season. Probably going to be healthy most of the season by the time it's over. I look at the rest of the O-line. They upgraded with Shaq Mason, and the other starters are perfectly fine as well. Donovan Smith and the rookie second-round pick. I forget his name, Luke something. He's the second-round pick. He's a starter as well.
It's like
I think
Godick.
Yes, that's his name. That's the start. Those are the starters. I think it's a very fine starting offensive line. I think they're going to be perfectly fine. I think the O-line concerns are completely overblown, and I think Tampa Bay is going to win this division. What do you say to that?
I agree. I do think it's definitely a tough loss to lose your to use Lyon Jensen and Aaron Stinney to the season-ending injuries. That's a shame, but they did get Shaq Mason in, who I think is weird. He was tossed away by the Patriots for no understandable reason, and but whatever the Patriots lost is the Bucks gain. But yeah, I like the Saints, and I think that even in the post Sean Payton era, I still think the Saints are going to be a good team. But I do think Tampa Bay is still better. I mean, it's not – I learned that you can't count out Tom Brady. I thought once Tom Brady lost in the Super Bowl to the Eagles, that was it. That was the end of the Tom Brady era. We were never really going to hear from him again. But lo and behold, he's gone and won 2 Super Bowls after that. And what are you going to do about it? But, I don't think it's fair to count out the Bucks. I still think this is a great team still. Like, I don't think anyone should say otherwise because it's not. But I don't expect them to make the Super Bowl because I do think there are just better teams out there anyways.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't have Tampa as my Super Bowl team, but I do think they'll, similar to last year, I think they could definitely make round 2. I will say about the Saints, I do have them winning 10 games. I think Jameis is going to have a great season. I think he's got a good O-line. And look at the improvement of his receivers. I mean, everyone's been talking about this, but Michael Thomas is coming back. They signed Jarvis Landry. They drafted Chris Olave. And the defense is as good as ever. They brought in Tyrann Mathieu to add to the secondary that was already really good. The linebackers, the front seven, Cam Jordan leading the way. They're still as formidable as ever. And, you know, you look at this team's depth chart, all three starting receivers from last year are now the three backups. So they have good depth as well, in my opinion, Marcus Callaway. So Kamara's there. I think this team's a playoff team. I don't really see how they're not. Some people have said, look at, they don't have Sean Payton anymore. Is Dennis Allen qualified to coach this team? Dennis Allen's been their D coordinator for, I believe, at least 7 years. I think he's very much in touch with how the team should be run. They have the same OC returning as well. I don't see a lot of turnover for this team. And if you don't want to say they're a Super Bowl team, I'm okay with it, but I think they're definitely a playoff team. Would you agree? I think you said
Oh, for sure.
But...
I totally agree. I think it's kind of weird that people don't believe in Dennis Allen. I mean, like when Sean Payton was out last year for a game, who stepped in? It was Dennis Allen.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? They beat the Buccaneers. You know, I think it's kind of weird that people are trying to write him off. I mean, he was essentially, handpicked to be Sean Payton's replacement.
Yep.
He's a great defensive coordinator, and I think it's kind of weird people are trying to write him off. But I totally agree. I thought it was interesting that you mentioned that all of the starting wide receivers from last year are now the backups. That's kind of a funny coincidence, but that does bode very well for them. Jarvis Landry, he's getting older in age, but he's still a very solid, great route runner. Michael Thomas, I think it is kind of weird that some people still consider him one of the best receivers in the NFL because we haven't seen him play. But if Michael Thomas can return to the even close to the level of play he was at before he got injured 2 seasons in a row, I think this guy could easily become one of the best again, and Chris Olave, he's excellent. A lot of people considered him the best receiver in this draft, and it's insane that he fell to the Saints, So, yeah, I do think that this team's great. There's not much to say about the defense because I still think the defense is still really good, except for the fact that, Marcus May, his future with the team is up in the air right now. But
at least they have PJ Williams there as well to maybe reassume the safety role.
And
I will say
Daniel Sorensen. Can't forget Daniel Sorensen.
Let's not talk about Daniel Sorensen. But I will say one thing I really didn't like about the Saints. The only thing I didn't like about their offseason. I'm not even against them trading Chauncey Gardner-Johnson because I think they had the safety depth, but I think they just kind of handed him to the Eagles, who had already we're about to talk about the Eagles, but the Eagles had a hell of an offseason. They only helped the Eagles get better. They needed a safety, and they gave him one right before the season. So I would give them slight criticism there on that trade, but yeah, that's really all I got to say about that.
Yeah, I did think it was kind of weird for how little he was traded because I feel like Gardner Johnson's kind of underrated. I think he's a really solid, defensive back. He's very versatile. He can play corner and safety.
Yeah, right.
So I did think it was kind of weird they kind of just gave him away. But I guess it's also because they didn't anticipate the whole Marcus May situation occurring. But yeah, they still, like you said, they still have PJ Williams. And, I think they'll be okay. It is what it is. There's not much to say about that. I agree.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. So that's pretty much our thoughts on the Saints. One more team I'm interested to hear what you have to think about in this division. I mean, sorry to the Falcons, but I have them going 3-14. I think their depth chart's a mess. Besides AJ Terrell and Kyle Pitts, I don't really like the people on this team. Would you agree with that? That's all I really want to talk about the Falcons.
Yeah, I mean,
and Grady Jarrett.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I love the Falcons. I don't know why. I just like the Falcons for no particular reason. I just like them. They're a hard team to hate. I do agree there's not a lot of talent on this team, and it's a shame because, I like a lot of the guys here. I'm a big Marcus Mariota fan. I like him. It's a shame he never really got his career going. Maybe he has a chance still too. Kyle Pitts is great. Calvin Ridley. I like Calvin Ridley. He got an unfair shake with his old suspension, but
yeah.
And I love AJ Terrell. Great corner. I think he's definitely like top 5 currently, and I don't think enough people are talking about AJ Terrell. I mean, the guy's insane. Love AJ Terrell. I think he's great. But yeah, outside of that, there's not a lot on this team to love, and it's a shame. But I do think that the Atlanta Falcons are going to be the Detroit Lions of this season. We saw Detroit did not have a lot of top-end talent on their team. They still managed to show a lot of promise, and I think we're going to see that from the Falcons. We're going to see a lot of promise and potential from them, but this season's not really going to go anywhere for them. I project them to have a top 5 pick, but I think we're going to see a lot of potential from them.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that, but I still don't see them doing that well. But the team I did really want to get your thoughts on. What's your thoughts on the Carolina Panthers?
Oh, wow. I mean, the Panthers.
Open slate. What do you think?
The Panthers are an incredibly interesting team to talk about. I'm really excited for Baker Mayfield. I think Baker Mayfield, don't think he's amazing, but I think he got a really unfair shake with the Browns. I think a lot of people blamed him for their struggles when it was kind of just like top to bottom. The Browns were kind of dysfunctional, but it is what it is. I think Baker Mayfield definitely has a chance to revitalize his career. McCaffrey's great. It's a shame he's been injured. I'm a big DJ Moore fan. I think he's really underrated as a wide receiver. There's not a lot to love about this team, but I think there's also potential. Their defense, I think they got some young players. They got Brian Burns, who's pretty great. Derek Brown, who, Derek Brown's he hasn't been exceptional, but he's at the very least been a solid player. And, of course, like Jeremy Chin, Dante Jackson. I think this team's also going to be one of the worst in the league. Sad to say it, but it is what it is, and hopefully Baker Mayfield could kind of have some redemption with this team.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with everything you said, except that I don't think this is going to be one of the worst teams in the league whatsoever. I think this
really.
Team, I don't have them as a playoff team, but if CMC is healthy, I think this O-line is underrated. I think DJ Moore is going to have maybe his best season yet. I don't love the rest of the receiving core, but I think CMC can kind of serve as a pass catching option for Baker. I think we've seen Baker thrive the most when he has offensive line protection. I think this O-line is far from awful. I think it's not going to be as good as Cleveland's was, but I think it's going to be serviceable. Like you said, Brian Burns, Shaq Thompson, Jeremy Chin, J.C. Horn, Dante Jackson. I think this defense has good players, Derek Brown. I think they're going to win 8 games. I think they're going to compete for the playoffs until the last few weeks, but ultimately with the Saints and Tampa in this division, I think they won't be good enough to beat those two teams, and that will hurt their playoff chances. But I think this team's going to set the foundation. I've been a defender of Matt Rule throughout his tenure with the Panthers so far. I will admit his handling of the quarterback situation was pretty horrific last season, but at the same time, I supported. I think when they had Teddy Bridgewater that first season, I think they were pretty good. They only won 5 games, but they went down to the wire with a lot of good teams that year. I think last year was just a misstep, and I think he's going to redeem himself this year and earn himself another season as the coach of the Panthers going into the 2023 season. I really think this team is headed in a good direction. I don't think a lot of people realize that. Everyone wants to pile on Baker. Everyone wants to say how Christian McCaffrey, he's injury prone, and that may be true, but he just hasn't blown out his knee. He hasn't broken his leg. He hasn't gotten a bunch of concussions. It's been shoulder and hamstring and stuff like that. I think he can overcome it. I like Deontay Foreman as another running back on this team. He was awesome with the Titans last year. I think this team's going to have a good season. I don't know why. I just have a good vibe with them.
You know what? That's totally valid. I don't necessarily hate that take. I think that's actually some pretty good points. I don't hate that take from you. I personally don't agree with it. I think there's a lot left to be desired by this team. It kind of feels like there's only 1 or 2 good players at like each position. You got Brian Burns as really the only, and like Matt Ioannidis is like the only like proven to be good players in the D line. Shaq Thompson's the only linebacker who I really have any faith in on this team, and even Shaq Thompson, he's kind of like up and down sometimes. This secondary is pretty young. Actually, I actually really like the secondary. I still think that is insane that CJ Henderson got traded after 1 season. I think
that's another move that could maybe help this team.
I think it was kind of weird they gave up on him so soon, but I think that's Jaguars loss, Panthers gain for them. Yeah. So I don't hate the take that this could be an 8-win team. I just personally don't see it happening because I just think a lot of these players are too young. There's a lot of development, but I think they're going to show a lot of potential. And I don't, it is possible they could have 8 wins. I don't hate that take for sure.
Fair enough. Yeah, I guess we'll have to see. That can be something we talk about throughout the season. We'll have to see if my prediction becomes true. So moving on to the NFC East. All the Eagles fans listening, I'm sure they're very eager to hear what we have to say. You already mentioned, did you say you think the Eagles, well, you said the Rams are going to make the Super Bowl. So I think you mentioned that you think the Eagles are going to be the 1 seed before. Is that what you said?
No, if I did say that, that was a misspoken. I meant to say the Eagles win their division is what I meant to say. They're definitely not the 1 seed in the conference. The Dallas Cowboys, I know a lot of people want to say, oh, the Cowboys, but me personally, until I see the Cowboys actually do anything substantial in the playoffs, this is a team that will always be a bunch of choke artists to me. A lot of people, they have talent, but like they just never get it done. And I don't have faith in any of them, especially not Dak. Dak Prescott, I really like Dak. I think he's a great quarterback, but he's choked it in his few playoff appearances, and it's kind of just it's not promising. Like there's a lot of good players on this team, but they just don't really ever seem to do anything with it. So
Yeah, so my take with Dallas, I guess we can start with them. We'll make the Eagles fans wait a little longer here. So I definitely think they got worse. I think losing Randy Gregory, losing Amari Cooper. Can we talk about how the Eagles got more for Jalen Rager than the Cowboys got for Amari Cooper? It's inexcusable. It's
Insane.
embarrassing. It's just embarrassing. Like, let me just put it that way. If
Yeah.
Jalen Tolbert isn't a stud right away, like with Gallup dealing with the injury, he might not be 100% even if he plays right away. Washington's out half the season on the IR. I don't like the receiving core for Dallas outside of CD. I did just draft Zeke in fantasy, but I also drafted Pollard to go with him. So we'll have to see how that situation shakes out. I think Zeke, even though he's going to get the touches, I think he's a better fantasy player than a real life player at this point. The O line, They did just sign Jason Peters to replace Tyron Smith. My dad, he's a Cowboys fan. He's pretty adamant Jason Peters is going to be a bench player. I disagree. I think they're signing him to start. I don't think they think Tyler Smith. I don't think they think Tyler Smith is ready. I heard a lot of people criticize that draft pick. We'll have to see how it pans out. I mean, Dallas does traditionally have a good O line, but it will be interesting to see how that fares. Defensively, losing Gregory's tough. I do like their secondary more than most. I think Trayvon Diggs is overrated as he is. I think he's also become underrated because so many people say he's overrated. If you look at his numbers, he does allow a lot of yards, but also getting 12 interceptions is a big deal. Forcing turnovers at the end of the day is arguably the most important thing for a defense to do. And if you also look at his quarterback rating allowed, it's pretty good. So there's some good and bad with Trayvon Diggs. He's very hot and cold, but I think he's a quality player. But overall, the secondary with Dan Quinn coaching them up, the whole defense that is, I think the defense is a little underrated. But at the same time, Dallas, I think, definitely got worse. I think this is the Eagles' division to win.
I agree with you. I do think they actually got worse as a team. And Trayvon Diggs, me personally, I think he's more a bad player than he is a good player because I think he just fundamentally does not play cornerback well. Like he's a wide receiver playing on defense. He's very good at playing the ball in the air, but he doesn't really know how to cover people per se. I don't know. I just don't love this team. It's not as good as it used to be. They got rid of Amari Cooper, which I thought was kind of weird to do, especially when there's no a viable backup plan in place. They got Kevontae Turpin, who I think is going to be a pleasant surprise. I think the guy's electric on kick returns, and he's probably going to play a decent amount in this offense because he's wide receivers. We've seen Gallup and CeeDee Lamb. They've had their injuries in the past, and Jalen Tolbert's unproven. So yeah, not a big fan. Yeah.
I do think here's a weird take though. As much as I don't like this Cowboys team, I kind of think they're still going to make the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to the division. I think the Eagles are a lot better than them because I think Dallas, they play the same teams the Eagles play. And I still think they're really enough talent that they can beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. They can beat the Giants and the Commanders. I think the Jets are on that schedule. Houston might be on that schedule. I think Dallas can beat these teams just like the Eagles can. The difference is I think the Eagles can also beat some really good teams as we're about to get to.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's not a terrible take. I personally, I just don't think they're going to do anything in the playoffs. That's kind of where I stand. So yeah, I guess I do agree with your take because I really think the Eagles and the Cowboys are the only really good teams in this division right now. I mean, the Giants. No offense to our Giants friends who are Giants fans, but this team is a mess. I don't really know what to make of them half the time. It's very weird. I mean, their star wide receiver is running like a mannequin, supposedly. I mean, Kenny Galladay's committing a felony robbing this team. And, I mean, I love the Washington Commanders. I'm a big Washington Commanders fan. I like them. I want to root for them because I want them to, succeed. But I don't love their team either. But I do think that they have some potential, and I do think they're going to end up being third in the standings. I think we're going to see the Giants be the worst team.
I agree.
They got Terry McLaurin, and it can't be understated how underrated Terry McLaurin is. I don't think enough people talk about how great Scary Terry is.
Yeah, no, I love Terry McLaurin. I wish he gets a good quarterback one day. This year is not it. To me, if Baker Mayfield was on the Commanders, I might have had the same take I had about the Panthers as the Commanders. But here's my thing. I think Carson Wentz is going to finally end his tenure in the NFL as a starting quarterback. I think he's going to be a backup full-time after this season. I think he's going to have a bad year. I think the running back room is atrocious. I like J.D. McKissick, but he's a third down back. Antonio Gibson, I think he hasn't been given a fair shake, but I also don't think he's that good. And Brian Robinson, unfortunately, is dealing with the injuries after his unfortunate incident with the shooting. Hopefully he gets better. as soon as possible. This defense for the Commanders, it's not terrible, but it could also be a little bit better. We'll have to see how Chase Young shakes out. Looks like he might miss some games. And to answer your points on the Giants, I think Saquon's going to have a terrific year. I think he's going to be really good. I think Brian Dable is going to help this team start to move in the right direction. I like some of their defensive players like Aziz Ojulari. Is that how you say his name, I believe? He had a really
Ojulari, yeah. He's pretty good.
Leonard Williams. I like guys like that. But at the same time, I think this team needs 1 or 2 more years to really solidify themselves. I think they're going to look a lot better when they have C.J. Stroud instead of Daniel Jones. So we can talk more about the Giants a year from now. So that's kind of my thoughts on them. But I like the Brian Dable hire.
Yeah.
So now I think the Eagles fans have waited long enough, though. We got to talk about this Eagles team. So you said before you don't think they are going to be the number 1 seed in the NFC. I disagree. I have the Eagles going 13-4. I think the schedule is a cakewalk for them. And I think they're going to – no, I don't have them going to the Super Bowl, but I think they're going to have home field advantage throughout the NFL playoffs. We'll have to see if they capitalize on that. But I think this was a career-defining offseason for Howie Roseman. I think he made every move correct. Not a single bad move. I don't know where this came from after Eagles fans wanted him a one-way ticket flight out of town just a little over a year and a half ago, I would say. He is completely redeemed himself, and I'm glad for him because he built a Super Bowl winning team, and then 2 years later, everyone hated him, and now everyone loves him again. And I think this has worked out tremendously for the Eagles, whether you talk about Jordan Davis, Hassan Reddick coming back home, former Temple player, signing Bradbury, the Gardner Johnson trade, like we mentioned. Their O-line's terrific. The A.J. Brown trade was probably their biggest move. I even kind of like the Trey Sermon signing just because I think they needed a power back, kind of like Jordan Howard. Our friend Matt really loves the Jordan Howard, how he did with the Eagles. He was thinking they needed a replacement for him. I think they might have found it in Sermon if he's able to fulfill his potential of his draft spot from before. But at the end of the day, in my eyes, this all depends on Jalen Hurts and how he does. So what's your thoughts on Jalen Hurts, but also just the Eagles offseason in general? Because I think this team's going to be really good.
Looking at this depth chart they have going, I totally agree with you. I didn't realize, how much improved this roster seems to be this year compared to last year. I still don't think they're going to win the conference. I still think that's the Rams' title to lose. But okay. I totally agree with you. I think this is going to be a great playoff team. They'll definitely make it pretty far. I mean, if everything shakes out well for them. I think Jalen Hurts gets a lot of hate from people, but, he needs time to develop as well because he was kind of like a raw quarterback prospect, But I like Jalen Hurts. I think people kind of like shit on him too much. They're like, oh, he's bad. But honestly, he's better than not a lot, but he's better than some of the other starting quarterbacks in this league, me personally. Like, I'd rather have him over like Carson Wentz or something like that. But that's just me.
I think everyone
because Carson Wentz has the talent, but I don't know. That's for another day. But no, looking at this roster, I totally agree. They made great decisions. They drafted Jordan Davis, who's just a behemoth of a human being. They traded for A.J. Brown on draft day, which honestly I think was kind of a steal for them because, A.J. Brown, we sent over, I think, like 5 or 6 draft picks for Tyreek Hill. They only gave up 2. Which I think, well, obviously A.J. Brown's not Tyreek Hill, but, I think they got a pretty good deal out for him to pair him up with Devonta Smith and even Quez Watkins to some extent. I think Quez Watkins is underrated, but that's also because I don't think he's gotten his chance yet to really show off how good he can be because, I think the offense last year is still kind of trying to find its footing with Nick Sirianni, but his defense, I think, is great. I think the Kaiser White signing is really underrated. Yeah. I think Kaiser White's a really underrated linebacker. I think people don't talk about him enough when he was with the Chargers. But, I also love the move for Gardner Johnson, and I really like the secondary as well. They also brought in James Bradbury. Marcus Epps, I'm sure a lot of people see him as kind of like the weak link, but I actually like Marcus Epps. I don't think he's a terrible player. I think he's pretty good.
Yeah, I think he's just got to prove himself, but I think the small glimpses we saw of him, I think he wasn't horrific. I think he can earn that starting safety job, prove that he deserves it. I agree. I think the secondary is going to be good. I think the front seven is going to be one of the best in the league. They're getting Brandon Graham back as well, to pair with Hargrave, to pair with Reddick, to pair with Jordan Davis, Cox, etc. I think this is the best offensive line in football. I think Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata is an absolutely just the ultimate tackle duo the NFL has right now. I think that's devastating. Yeah. I like Dallas Goedert. I think he's a top 5 tight end in the league, potential-wise. I don't think he's there yet.
The only thing I'll say about the Birds is that I kind of think their running back situation could be improved. I actually don't hate Miles Sanders, but I think he needs to stay a little healthier. I just think that because of his durability concerns at times, I think this team needs, like I said, I like Trey Sermon, but I think they need a little bit of a better bruiser type back. I think a Kareem Hunt, if Kareem Hunt still wants to be traded, that's still on the table. I think that would be a really good move for the Eagles. I said Kenyon Drake, but he wound up signing with the Ravens. So I don't know. I think that's one move they could make. Gainwell's there as well as a third down guy. We'll see how he does. But ultimately, I think this team is really, really loaded. And I think they're going to be, like I said, I think they're going to be the 1 seed in the NFC based off the regular season.
Yeah, no, I get where you're coming from. I still think the Rams are a better team, but I totally see a possible path, like a possible future where the Eagles are the number 1 team. This is a very good team.
Agreed. And I don't know, I'm excited to see how they do. We'll see if Sirianni can keep improving as well. So I'm excited to see what the Eagles do this year. But if there's one team that I'm, of course, excited to watch, it's, of course, my Green Bay Packers. I finally get to talk about it on the podcast here. Mike, you go first before I go on any type of rant. What's your expectations for the NFC North this year, standing wise?
So before we get to the Packers, I think this is the team we have the most to discuss about.
Yeah.
Let's start with the Chicago Bears, who I think is going to come in fourth. I think it's the worst team in football. I don't have a lot to say about them other than the fact that they're trying to throw Justin Fields' career down the drain.
Yeah.
Justin Fields is a very talented quarterback, and they've given him nothing to work with on both sides of the ball, I feel. Mm-hmm. And, I don't really have much to say. I feel bad for Justin Fields, and he honestly would have been better off being drafted by the Jets or the Jaguars, but it is what it is now. And
agreement. Yeah, I mean, Roquan Smith might be leaving, so yeah, they're in a tough spot. They really are.
He's good. I'm surprised they don't want to pay him, but
yeah, especially when they have not a lot of other people to pay. It's odd. So, and Robert Quinn even was asking to get traded if they want to pay him. He's coming off an 18 sack season. But outside of him and Roquan and maybe Brisker coming in from Penn State at safety, I'm excited to see what he does. The rest of that defense, though, not a lot of optimism on my end. So I think they're going to be the worst team in the league as well. I think the Texans beat them in that game they play, and I think the Bears wind up having that number 1 pick in the NFL draft.
Yeah, no, I agree. The Detroit Lions, I think, is third. I think it's pretty easy to slot in the third. Vikings as second. The Lions, I think they're going to continue to prove upon last year and show a lot of potential as well. But, I think with Jared Goff still at quarterback and some other pieces missing, I think that's going to hold the team back from really taking that next leap. But I do think they're poised for a top draft pick still this year, and they're going to get to their pick of the top quarterbacks. So I think once it's not that the Detroit Lions are bad. It's just that I just think there's so many other teams that are good and actually have developed good, solid players. Cause the Lions are good. They have a lot of good players, but they're really young. They still need to develop. There's a lot of potential for this team, but I don't think they're really going to be able to capitalize on that until they have a really a star-studded quarterback and some vets come in and really help them out.
My thing with the Lions. Sorry. I was going to say, I think my thing with the Lions is that I don't think they're going to be bad enough to get a CJ Stroud or Bryce Young unless one of them falls. I think this Lions team is a 6 or 7 win team this year. I think the defense definitely needs to improve a little bit, but I think they have a couple good players. And on offense, I mean, they got a great O-line and a great run game. My guy, Jamal Williams, even though he's on the line, I still got love for him. Swift, I just got in fantasy. I'm excited to see what he does. I think they've got a top 5, 6-ish offensive line in football. And also, if Jameson Williams comes back, him and Amon-Ra and Hawkinson could be 3 really good targets. Really what it comes down to is can Jared Goff be as good as he was maybe a couple seasons with the Rams? I don't necessarily think he can. I think without McVay, he's a worse player. But, I think this Lions team will, just like last year, fight. And, I think they're going to have a good season. I just don't think they're going to be able to get one of those top 2 quarterbacks. Now, maybe an Anthony Richardson type, sure. But those top 2 guys, I don't see him getting.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I definitely get where you're coming from. I don't know. I like the Lions. I just think there's a lot of other teams that are better than them. So I do think they're going to end up towards the bottom. But I do see what you're saying. They very easily could get 6 or 7 or 8 wins. I see the potential because there's a lot of potential on that team.
Yeah, for sure. So you want to talk about the Vikings as well? So go ahead because
the Vikings.
I have a lot of thoughts.
The Vikings, I'm kind of weird on. I don't think they're just a very mid team. I feel. I feel this team like Kirk Cousins is a decent quarterback, but I don't think he's anything spectacular. I do think they have really good running backs. Like Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison, and even like Ningwagu. Like I think he's also pretty good. Like they have three great running backs. Their wide receiver core is pretty good. There's Jefferson, Thielen, and Osborne. But they have a good offensive line as well. They got Darrisaw, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just don't love the defense, and I think the defense is what's really going to hold this team back. Like this defense is not promising in any way. Like Patrick Peterson is very much past his prime. Cameron Dancer's up and down a lot. Andrew Booth Jr. is a rookie this year. Lewis Cine, he was a first-round draft pick. He's not even the starter, which is not great considering the guy starting in front of him is Cameron Bynum. I've never heard of this guy. And I don't think it's great that Lewis Cine is not starting over him because he's a first-round draft pick. But
yeah, I'm in agreement with you. So I hate the Vikings. They're my least favorite team. I'm sorry, Bears fans. Don't take it personal that I don't hate you. I just hate the Vikings more. I hate the Vikings fans. I think they're the most annoying. I think they just whine and whine and whine. We don't get any Super Bowls, blah blah blah. You guys suck. You're chokers. Live with it. It's your life. It's your destiny. It's what you were put on this earth to do. It's why your team was founded. You're chokers. That's what happened. That being said, I have Justin Jefferson in almost every fantasy league I have. I wanted him on the Packers. He went before our pick. We wound up with Jay Love, who I'm going to talk about in a sec here. But I love Jefferson. Thielen and Osborne I also like a lot. I think this receiving core might be the best in the NFL, unless the Rams with A-Rob prove to be that. Otherwise, I think it's the Vikings. Dalvin, even though he deals with the injuries, I agree with you. Him and Madison are a great combo. And Madison sounds like he wants to be traded and get that opportunity to be a number one back. I think he deserves it, but we'll have to see if that happens. And even Kirk, he doesn't win the big games, but I think he's a good, he can really sling the ball around, get 30-plus touchdowns. I think this offense with Kevin O'Connell coming in to replace Zimmer, the corpse of Mike Zimmer, who couldn't helm an offense anymore. I know he's a defensive coach, but he couldn't helm an offense anymore. I think O'Connell's going to help. I have this team winning 10 games. As much as I hate him, I think they're going to be good. But like you said, this defense, I think, is going to be a problem for them. It's going to be why, everyone who doesn't like the Packers, they're like, look at the Vikings, look at the odds in Vegas. This is a great bet for the division. I listen to Bill Simmons pod all the time. He's one of my favorite sports analysts, but he's a lot better at the NBA than the NFL. Every year he comes up with the reason the Packers aren't going to win the division, and every year he's wrong. And he's going to be wrong again this year. Zadarius Smith, one of my favorite Packers of all time. Not of all time, but like in recent years, one of my favorite Packers that I've watched, I would say. He's a great pass rusher, great signing. He's now with the Vikings. Broke my heart a little. He's originally going to go back to the Ravens. He's pairing with Danielle Hunter. And if they're healthy, that's a great pass rushing duo. I won't deny that. But, Z's dealt with a back injury and Danielle's dealt with neck injury. And last year he tore his quadriceps. So both of those guys have dealt with a lot of injuries, and those guys can't stay healthy, or if they're healthy, but they're not as good as they were because of these injuries. I think the Vikings are going to realize really fast that their defense is not going to be as good as they hoped. Their D-line's okay, and like you said, I don't love the secondary much either. Even Harrison Smith is starting to age out. He's not quite as good as he was a few years back. So I think this team's going to win because I think they're going to win some shootouts. I think similar to the Chargers, the problem with the Chargers is the division's really hard, but I think both of those teams are going to have terrific offenses. But especially this Vikings defense, I think can be a real problem. So really, I don't see the Vikings being better than the Packers, but I think they have a shot at the playoffs. But ultimately, I agree with your take. I think their defense is pretty bad.
Yeah, no, for sure. But, a team that I think is great, both sides of the ball, obviously, is your Packers. I'm looking at those roster. Ultimately, I don't think they're going to get it done in the playoffs because we've seen time and time again they can't. And, man, I'm just saying, as we've seen time and time again, they can't.
I'll give you some names. Alex Ovechkin, Dirk Nowitzki, who else? John Elway. These guys, it might take some time, but eventually it happens. Joel Embiid next spring.
Sure.
He's another one. And Aaron Rodgers has won a Super Bowl, but it's been a long time coming. And it's time to pick who I think is going to the Super Bowl. You say the Rams and the Bills. I say the Green Bay Packers. And the Buffalo Bills will be your Super Bowl. How am I not going to pick the Packers? I've been saying this for years. I pick them every year because I say, I'm an honest fan. I'm telling you, the Flyers are the worst team in hockey right now. I'm going to be honest about my teams. Sixers, I was killing Harden a lot in the playoffs this year as much as I love my Sixers. I was criticizing him. If I don't think my team is up the stack, up the snuff, I'm going to say it. I'm going to keep it real. But here's my thing. The Green Bay Packers are up to snuff. They're a Super Bowl caliber team this year. I'm going to tell you why. So, running backs, Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, best combo in the league. Our offensive line, Elgin Jenkins, David Bakhtiari, both healthy. I was talking about Mailata and Lane Johnson. Those guys are healthy. They're just as good as those guys. That's a great tackle combo. Josh Myers at center, he's going to get better. Receiver, everyone wants to talk about Devontae Adams. We traded him away. He wanted to get the money. He's back with Derek Carr. All more power to him. I don't got no problem. He went to the Raiders. That's not a rival. Have fun with your old teammate. But here's the thing. Now, all that money, we get to use it on our elite defense. Rasul Douglas is back. We gave Kenny Clark a big extension. We gave Devondre Campbell an extension. He made All-Pro last year. Really broke out at linebacker. Jair's coming back from his collarbone injury. He might be a top 2 corner in the league. I would say he is. Amos is still here. Savage is still here. We used the picks we got by trading Devontae Adams to draft Quay Walker, the great linebacker from Georgia. We also have Devontae Wyatt on the D-line now. 2 first-round picks. And at wide receiver, Aaron Rodgers loves Allen Lazard. He's been talking him up. I don't think Allen Lazard is going to be as good as Devontae Adams by any means, but I think he's going to put together a nice season. If you look at our record in games that Devontae Adams missed, but Aaron Rodgers played, it's a lot better than you would think. I think Rodgers, when he's able to, remember the days of Nelson, Cobb, and Jones, guys like that, and Drylon Driver, people like that. When Rodgers can spread the ball around, he does better. If Christian Watson, I don't think he's going to do much as a rookie, but if he gets healthy, I think there's a chance maybe late in the season he can start to come along. I think Sammy Watkins, he's going to deal with injuries, but, week 1, Sammy Watkins, he's going to torch the Vikings in week 1. And we've also seen him put together good playoff runs with the Chiefs as well. I have faith in him. Randall Cobb has the chemistry, of course, with Rodgers. And who can forget the future Hall of Famer, the 4th-round pick out of Nevada, Romeo Doubs. He is the savior of this Packers offense. He's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's going to win me numerous fantasy leagues. I have him in almost every league. And all I can really say about Romeo is that he's a future Packers Ring of Honor member, and he is going to help us make the Super Bowl this season. I think this team, I do think the Eagles will have a better regular season, but I think this team's going to make it out of the playoffs, make it to the Super Bowl, and I think they're going to have a great season, and Aaron Rodgers is going to be redeemed. After all the naysayers have called him all kinds of names, got on him about all this nonsense, what did he do? Did he leave? No. He doubled down. He re-signed with the Packers. Packer for life. Greatest quarterback in franchise history. Future first ballot Hall of Famer. We also got J Love, who's lighting it up for preseason. I don't care what the stats say. I liked what he gave us in the preseason. I'm loving the team right now. What do you say to all that, Mike? Because I'm loving the Packers right about now.
Look, I think the Packers are a great team. Can't deny. Top to bottom, this is an excellent team in regards to its starters and its depth. I mean, the starters are incredible. These are some of the best players in the league at their positions.
Word.
Jair Alexander, like you're saying, he's a top 3 corner, top 2, really. It's like Ramsey, Jair, and then like Howard, I'd say personally. Jair's insane. Eric Stokes, Darnell Savage, these are young guys. Yeah, I forgot Eric
Stokes. My bad. I apologize.
Adrian Amos. I do really like the Packers. I don't have a lot to say about the Packers that like you haven't said. Like, you've pointed out a lot of these like important players, and like I totally agree with you. I think a lot of these guys are great. But I'm gonna be cautiously optimistic about their season because until I see the Packers really put things together in the playoffs, I can't call them a Super Bowl contender or even a lock for the Super Bowl. Because we've seen time and time again that something happens in the playoffs that just leads to a collapse. And, I don't want to hate on the Packers. Far from it. I like the Packers. I think they're a great team. My dad's a big Aaron Rodgers fan. I have no issue with them personally. I just don't know, like, it's kind of similar to it's like the Cowboys. They make it to the playoffs when they kind of like choke it away.
Whoa. That's disrespectful.
No, the Packers. No. You can't deny that that's not the same pattern. The Packers are a way better team. Yeah, sure, of course. Their league's better than the Cowboys have been in years. Exactly. So, I'm not saying that. The pattern is similar, though. But I do agree with you that this really could be the year that, like, things go right for them. Because, honestly, in all the years that they've choked in the playoffs, they haven't had a better team than this one. So, I do totally see where your optimism is coming from.
I
really do hope for the best for them.
The NFC is really wide open this year.
That's true.
I like the Rams, like you're saying. I still think they got the talent. It's just that, we already beat the Rams. I know they didn't have Stafford, but we did handle them with all those skill guys 2 years ago. I think the Rams, as good as they are, I think they also are beatable. I think they're very, very good. but I don't think they're like, if you look at their playoff run last year, they were in competitive games. I mean, they didn't just walk over everybody. I think they're beatable if you exploit them in the right ways. Now we don't have Devontae to conquer Jalen Ramsey anymore, which, you know, he kind of owned him in that playoff game 2 years back, but that could be an issue. I certainly acknowledge that. But I also think to bring myself down to earth, put all the Romeo Dobbs stuff aside, I do think he's going to have a good year. But if I'm being realistic, the actual thing I'm expecting from this Packers team is a really, really good run game. I think Aaron Jones is going to have close to 90 catches. I think Dylan is going to put forth a really good season. I think that as long as Bach and Ellington are healthy, I think this run game could be really devastating, maybe the best in the NFL. And if the run game is on like that, then Aaron Rodgers is going to have a really easy time. I don't know if he's going to win a third straight MVP like Brett Favre did in the 90s. I don't know if he's doing that this year. But I think he's going to be ultra efficient once again, because I think he's going to have a lot of time to throw if the line's on. And I think the run game is going to really open up a lot for him in this offense, that I think this Packers offense could have a really efficient time in the red zone this year. And I think that's going to be what allows our offense to remain one of the best in the league, even if it has a different flavor to when it was just Devontae, he owns everybody, like that kind of thing. I think that connection that him and Rodgers had was special. But, you know, a new thing isn't always a bad thing. I'm kind of really optimistic about what this Packers offense is going to look like.
No, that's right. I think that's totally valid. I think, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think there's a very good possibility for this team.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see. I'm excited. I hope we beat the Vikings in week 1. I know a lot of people think the Vikings have a shot at beating us, but I'm hoping, unlike last year when we got obliterated in week 1, I hope we come out and really set the tone for the season. So with all that being said, just to finalize our thoughts on the NFC here. So who's your playoff team? So division winners, I think we're in agreement of the Rams, Tampa, the Eagles, and the Packers, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got the Eagles as my bye team, and then Packers, Rams, Tampa are my other playoff teams. Who are your wild card teams? I've got the Niners, the Saints, and then between Dallas and Minnesota, my heart tells me Dallas, but my mind says Vikings, so I'll give the Vikings the 7th seed here. But I do think Dallas is going to be a 10-win team. Similar situation I had with the Raiders and Dolphins earlier.
Yeah. I'm going to mostly agree with you on everything. My wild card teams personally would be Niners, Saints, Cowboys. I just think the Cowboys are I feel the same way about you. It's kind of like Vikings or Cowboys, kind of either way. So you picked Vikings. I'm going to pick Cowboys. I don't really feel strongly about either team. So yeah. But I do, but the Niners and Saints, I do think for sure are wild card teams.
Yeah, I agree. I think Trey Lance is going to surprise people. I don't know if he's going to be Lamar Jackson, but I think he's going to have a nice, efficient year with that Niners team. And yeah, like we said with the Saints, I just think they're really well-rounded. I think they're going to be able to beat a lot of teams. I just think Tampa, with that Brady element, that Brady leadership, I think it's just a tad bit better. I'm excited to see what Todd Bowles does as well, because I think he could improve after a weird tenure with the Jets. I think he has a good opportunity at his plate here with Tampa. So I'm excited to see how the playoffs shake out. I've got the Eagles as my 1 seed. You have the Rams, correct?
Yeah.
And then your Super Bowl is Bills, Rams, right? Mine's, of course, Packers, Bills. So we'll have to see how it all shakes out. But that's our NFL predictions. Anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up here,
Mike? Dolphins, playoff team. Tua is the future. That's all I gotta say.
All right. Well, you didn't predict that earlier, so but that's the hope. That's the hope.
Well, yeah. I'm hoping. I'm trying to as
put it into the air.
I'm not big into spiritual stuff, but I'm trying to manifest some good luck for the Dolphins.
Hey, I'm all for it. I got Jalen Waddle in fantasy. I want Tua to succeed. So Dolphins, Pats, Packers versus Vikings, big week 1 matchups. We'll be talking about it next week on the pod, but that's going to do it for our preseason predictions for these divisions. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure to follow the fan committee on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to keep up, because season's about to start. We're going to be starting to talk about some actual results. We're done previewing teams. It's time to talk about what's actually going on. So other than that, thank you guys for listening and have a great rest of your day.